Hello, Warhammer fans. It's the Andy and Andy show. Temporarily, yay! That means no music right now, folks, because word on the street is that Mr. Remington is actually in his limo, or 10 minutes ago he was in his limo. It was intercepted by a mob of rabid groupies who want to get some information out of him on the point value of a certain beastman unit, which of course would put him immediately to sleep. So he ordered the limo driver to just plow straight through the crowd beyond the groupies who wanted that particular nugget of info. And then they got kind of angry, and apparently they turned it over, set it on fire, and Mr. Remington was forced to climb out of the window of the limo. And he claims that he's now riding a Dracoth towards the Andy and Rem Show studio. How much of that we can believe, I'm not sure, but I'm going to take it with at least a tiny grain of salt. I'm going to assume that it's actually mounted a homeless man or something, and he's like whipping it into action, ordering this man to carry him towards the studio. So I thought, the people have been waiting long enough, we can't deprive them for any longer. And a couple of people asking that there's no music, but I have informed Mr. Remington that as soon as he arrives, he is to break into song instantly. So you can just hold on for that. It won't quite be the intro, but it will be coming very, very shortly. So let's see who we've got on the fabled active users list this week, shall we, before we get into the juicy Age of Sigmar goodness. Let's see, we've got Andreas Gudmundsson, Bazooka J. Rambo, Deandra McCourt, Dino Titan Edition, Dreaming Cyborg, Fluffy Dread, Gloom Dready Gaming, JP Morris, MC1 Gamer, Mickey Jenver, Powder Fan Overlord, Rob Lloyd, sweet, Sean Blake, Skeleton Flower, and Was Gob. Oh, there's Mark Harvey as well. And a couple of other people have started filing in. Oh, there's Demon _Lizard _from _outer _space. Yep, they're all piling in now that the show has begun. So, folks, since we don't have Mr. Remington, I think we could actually sneak in a topic without him realizing, because if he heard that this was on the agenda, I'm sure he would slow down to a crawl and wouldn't turn up at all. So, the word on the street. There's a lot of word on the street on this show. But as I was getting my shoes shined this morning, the shoe shine boy, who I pay extra money to give me the juicy gossip, he told me, this wasn't actually this morning, this was quite a while ago, that the General's Handbook 2 is coming along very soon. So, folks, anyone out there who is actually interested in the General's Handbook and point values, which units do you think need a little bit of tweaking one way or the other as far as their point value goes? What's horrendously overcosted and you never take it? What's so cheap that you just flood your army with it? What needs tinkering up or down? I want some audience interaction on this, because let's face it, Remington isn't going to offer too much insight on this particular issue when he decides to bless us with his presence. And let's see, Mickey Jenver asking about the Genitals Handbook, which is the Remington edition of the General's Handbook. So I think he's going to offer version 2 of that as well, where he's going to give point values on the various groinal ailments that he's acquired over the past 12 months, which I'm led to believe are plentiful. So, without any further ado, let's start looking at the GW website, shall we? As people are suggesting point value tweaks for those juicy Age of Sigmar units, let's see what the old GW are up to. And you can see here that in the pre-order section on the website, the only Age of Sigmar juiciness are these 4 battle forces: Stormcast, Sylvaneth, Khorne, and Ironjawz. So I suppose we can have a little bit of a look at these while we're waiting for the old Remster. I'm sure he's not going to be too excited about any of these forces. Now, we've seen pictures of them before, but we haven't actually heard any of this wonderful flavor text. So, a vision of golden celestial light, a living embodiment of the God King's might. The Stormcast Eternals are messengers of vengeance, armed with the might of stars. Once mortal champions of order forged by Sigmar into an astonishing fighting force, hurled down from the heavens to meet the forces of chaos head-on. They wreak bloody vengeance on the dark gods, the corruptors of the realms. An instant collection in a box. Yes, that is quite an instant collection in that box, isn't it? So, of course, we've got the Celestant Prime, Knight Azeros, 2 Dracothian Guard, 5 Paladins, 10 Liberators. So my recommendations for this box, if you're going to get this, add it to the Age of Sigmar starter box and use one of your prosecutors to make the alternate version of this guy. So you've got the Knight of Zeros and the Knight Venator. I think that's cooler than having 3 prosecutors, personally. Especially if you're going to buy a second box and you don't want 2 full units of prosecutors. And let's see, the Paladins and the Liberators, I think they're the multi-pose versions, so you can choose which weapons to put on them, which also will give you more conversion parts, especially if you're buying multiple starter boxes with those single pose kits that don't have the additional parts. So you can use the parts from these kits, the spares, to convert those ones in the box, which means you can make a bigger variety of weapons on these guys in particular, one of the many variants that are available to you in there. You don't get any Star Soul maces in the starter box, so it's nice to get one of those in here, of course. The Celestant Prime is not one that particularly interests me, just because it's quite expensive. And if I'm going to spend that much on a model, I'd probably rather get the Star Drake. I think that's better investment, and I'm not confident that he would actually stay in one piece. It looks a little bit on the flimsy side to me. So let's have a quick look at what kind of value we're getting here. So the Celestant Prime on his own is quite expensive. I think he's at about 45 or 50 on his own. 2 Dracoths, looking at about 35 to 40 for them. So it's very, very good value. That guy just there on his own is about 20. So definitely a saving to be made in this box, as there tends to be nowadays with GW. Dino Titan Edition thought I sounded like Yoda a minute ago. That's the last time I do that. Let's have a look at the old Sylvaneth Dark Root Wargrove, and let's have a reading of this, shall we? And we need a kind of Sylvaneth voice, though, so let's do it in the style of Cecil the Magical Unicorn. The air sings with glorious life magic as the children of Elariel surge into battle. The reborn goddess of war leads from the front as the wildwoods burst forth from the heaving ground, called into being by ancient spirits. Determined to protect the realm of life, mighty wargroves advance, crushing enemies with the inexorable strength of nature. Outcasts and free spirits strike suddenly and without warning, slaughtering the foe mercilessly to cleanse the tainted land. The Sylvaneth's rebirth will be remembered as a harbinger of absolute vengeance. It certainly will. Let's see what we get in there. So, 1 Dryka Hammerdreth, Tree Lord Ancient, 5 Spite Revenants, 5 Tree Revenants, and 6 Kurnoth Hunters. The Kurnoth Hunters are where it's at, as far as I'm concerned, in my limited experience playing against the Sylvaneth, or alongside them. Those Hunters are particularly nasty. So 6 of those in here is a good sign, because the concern when they do a big bargain box like this is that they'll only put in the units that you wouldn't really want. But there aren't really that many Sylvaneth units to choose from, so they've had to put in a bit of everything, which of course includes the good stuff. And in the picture here, they've built 3 of them with the swords and 3 with the bows. I've heard an argument for both, although I've seen the bows do more damage. And it looks like Remington's actually on the brink of turning up. He just popped into the chat. And so that's his first port of call, is it? He's late for the show. He's late for the time that he specifically requested for the show this week. And instead of coming straight into the hangout, he decides to enter the chat first and interact with the peasants. What will we do with this, Mr. Remington? Okay, let's press on. I'm sure there's nice saving to be had there. Some very nice models. Going back onto the Bloodbound Slaughter Storm. Here we go. Andreas Goodmanson says 1 Kurnoth Hunter is better than the Knight Questor. Yes, when we get to discussing point values, I'm going to have a little word on some of the Stormcast Eternal Heroes. Mr. Remington is just chilling in the chat now, just happily typing away in there instead of coming into the hangout. Okay, the Khorne Battle Force. I mean, look at all those models in there. How can that not be good value? Just a beastly amount. So, what kind of voice do we want for this that isn't going to shred my throat? Oh, what do you know now? Mr. Remington is struggling with technology and can't actually enter the hangout. Well, that's just fine and dandy, isn't it? Well, what? I'll send him another link to the hangout and see if he can actually access it that way. I'll just send him the exact same link again and see if he's able to get in this time, which would show it was entirely his fault. Here we go. Sending the link, and there we go. He's not the strongest with technology, old Mr. Remington. So let's have some nice murderous Khorne dramatic reading here, shall we? The murderous champions of the Chaos Gods fight furiously to extinguish the last light of hope. And none fight harder or command more fear. Oh!
Old Mr. Remington.
Old Mr. Remington has made it, folks.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on a Tuesday night. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your morning delight. Talking about Age of Sigmar and everything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on a Tuesday night.
Well, only 29 minutes late.
Hey, listen, I'm still in my work clothes, man. I've been up at it in meetings, changing lives since 6 a.m.
I told them about your limo being ambushed by groupies, and then you were forced to kind of mount a homeless man and ride him along the pavement to get there faster.
I was actually being followed by a police car all the way home, so I had to stick to the speed limit.
Is that something to do with your outfit? You look like some kind of gangster.
Hey, this is my styles, man. This is how I dress for school.
Or maybe they were tipped off by one of the rival Age of Sigmar YouTube channels.
That wouldn't surprise me. They've already
maybe there was some kind of dodgy stuff in your vehicle because they wanted you to turn up late.
Well, like I said, I'm changing lives, but I'm also influencing lives as well. You know, with the $1 million ideas, what the hell is that? The list goes on and on. I've even got lawyers on the case looking into legal proceedings against is there a legal challenge called ripping you off? I don't know what that's called in legal terms, but I had to fire my previous lawyer, Miss Genver, her name was. She was only interested in 50% or something like that. I said no, 10%.
And rumour has it she was actually passing on certain nuggets of information electronically to Duncan and the rest of GW.
Yes. Brazen. That's all I'll say, brazen. Brazenly passing on confidential information. But what can you do? You know, it's the world we live in.
Well, I know you're completely pumped up for this show. Hot on the heels of the news that General's Handbook 2 is coming along, and I know you're big into your point values.
I haven't read the first one yet.
Have you actually cracked it open yet?
I've opened it to see the pictures, and then I looked in the back for a bit, and then there was like stuff missing because you had to cross references with other stuff because army books come out after that one. Like didn't the Savage Orcs book come out after the General's Handbook? I think it did.
At least one or two of them have done.
So yeah, you know, that's a little bit of a problem. But you know, it's fairly cheap, isn't it? £10, £12.
I think some of the Savage Orc stuff is actually in the General's Handbook, though. I don't think they're greatly missing anything.
It is in there, but it's superseded by different rules in the actual army book. Different spells as well. So,
well, you'll be pleased to know we don't have to start talking about point values just yet. Although we have been getting some feedback from the audience on units they think are too expensive or too cheap, which we can touch on at least. I'm sure you'll have plenty of insight on that.
Is there any new stuff that I missed? Any new releases coming?
Well, there's a couple of rumours, and we were just in the middle of looking at, let's go back to the old screen share again, the new battle forces, which have been officially put up on the website now for pre-order. I think I was halfway through reading the description of the Khorne one, but I think it was going to destroy my throat, so I'm going to take pity on myself and stop that there. But you get Scar Bloodwrath, Aspiring Deathbringer, 3 Skull Crushers, 5 Breathmongers, 10 Blood Warriors, 20 Blood Reavers. So a lot of models there for £100. Some of them on the large side. A lot of them seem like the kind of models that you would get in the starter box, though. So if you just want to have a huge swarm of Khorne stuff, this would be a good place to go. But I think it's not quite as strong as the Stormcast Eternals box. What I would like to have seen here, since you already get quite massed numbers in the starter box, which you'll end up buying at least 1 or 2 of probably if you're going for Stormcast or Bloodbound, I would have liked to have seen more big stuff and less of the rank and file in here. But maybe they're just trying to push you more towards a Horde army with the Bloodbound. You're a bit of a Bloodbound enthusiast after playing about 1 full game with them.
I wouldn't say I was an enthusiast. I begrudgingly painted the starter box set stuff. And then because I bought Gore Chosen, I had 4 extra heroes, which I'm told make the army a lot more fun to play. So, I've started painting. Is it a Slaughter Priest? I don't know. It's the guy with the claws and the massive axe and the bare chest. Pretty good figure, but I've not got back in the saddle painting. I've basically base coated the guy and thought, how do you paint? I've forgotten how to even do it now.
It's safe to say you're not going to be picking up this box then with that many models in it.
No way. I've realised the last army I painted was a full Savage Orc army, and even that wasn't enough to, be a really, really big effective one. So it's knowing your limits in this hobby and painting, owning about 11 armies and not finishing any of them properly. I've just, I've realised just, small forces, adding 1 miniature at a time is the way to go.
You think you could get more excited about maybe this Ironjawz Thunder Fist battle force with a slightly more elite feel to it with some of the big stuff?
Well, I already own that Shaman because I use him in the Savage Orcs, and I already own a Giant. So, do you know what I mean? I don't know. Do I need?
Because you're more of a bone splitter than an Ironjawz, aren't you?
I like naked flesh better than people wearing trash cans for armor.
I'd heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Remington is into the sight of bare flesh.
I don't know. I like, if I'm going to go for like evil armies, I like kind of slightly comedy looking ones, and I think the Savage Orcs look just the part. Can I turn this conversation to Total Warhammer?
Well, I had a feeling you were going to anyway, since you've probably been doing nothing hobby-wise for the last 2 weeks.
Well, after completing it with the Dwarves, completing it with the Empire on hard level, I then went to Chaos. No, I went to the Goblins on hard and got destroyed in 20 minutes. So I thought, all right, I'll give it a go with the Vampires. And that was so frustrating, so difficult on hard. You basically own about 3 territories, and then Empire devastate you, and then Dwarves devastate you from the other side, and it's really difficult. So in the end, I just couldn't build up any, what's the word? Not currency, but when you're building up your
dark magic.
Not dark magic, but you're building up your infrastructure.
Ah, yes.
Couldn't build it up because it kept getting destroyed, and then in the end I gave up. But I quite liked using the vampire counts, but they're pretty weedy. They are really weedy.
I'm going to do a very educational video on winning the Vampire Counts campaign on hard mode, which only took me 998 turns.
You did amazing. I got Helman Gorst, but I didn't get as far as getting the other guy that wears a man's flesh for armor.
The gist of it is that you have to bide your time and not spread yourself too thin too fast, because you are going to be attacked from all sides. Yeah. So you really have to choose your battles wisely.
Yeah. Well, now I've started the Savage Orc campaign, and that's a lot of fun. And I'm just devastating it on that. You get your troops really fighty, and then you get a war, and then a whole army appears that you can tell. You can't control it, but you can tell it what to attack for you as part of the war target, and that's a lot of fun because you've got you can get squigs and giants and wolf riders, wolf chariots, really a lot of fun troops, and it's all in like orcsy and goblinsy language. Even the magic spells, itchy nuisance, here we go, foot of Gork. It's a lot of fun. So, but in between all this, I did a chaos campaign, and I was going to send you a screenshot because I amassed 120,000 gold in one turn. Whereas if you're Empire or Dwarves, you'd struggle to amass 3,000.
Did I tell you about in my Vampire Counts campaign when I managed to amass a total treasury of about 350,000?
No. Wow. It's weird because if you raid stuff and then you just completely like bankrupt the other nations. Whereas if you're dwarves or empire, you raid stuff and it's like, well, you've got 600 gold for that. But with chaos warriors, you get 30,000. But yeah, I thought it was too easy with the chaos ones, so I wasn't getting the satisfaction. But I was the big Shaggoth character, which was pretty good fun as well.
No surprise there.
And there you go. That's my update with the Total War.
Here's something for you. Have you ever played Talisman, the board game?
No.
Okay, so I'm assuming that also means you never played Talisman Digital Edition on Steam. I'll tell you right now, it might be the worst board game I've ever played. It is pretty terrible. I think Dreddy described it as like grown-up snakes and ladders, or shoots and ladders, as the Americans seem to call it. And it is pretty much that. It's so random. And you have very little control over what you're doing, and there's very little tactics involved at all. It's almost entirely down to luck and which cards happen to come up in your favor. And of course, there's dice rolling in it. So the real kind of hardcore board game enthusiasts and board game designers probably hate that kind of thing, where there's a lot of random elements in it because they can't apply their genius intellect to it. So it's not very good at all, I'm afraid. It's probably a product of its time. I think it came out early 80s, Talisman, one of those ye olde Games Workshop related games. But yeah, I think I prefer Hero Quest.
Right, now what about, I know we're trading into 40k ground here, but there's been a new Steam game from Games Workshop with 40k, hasn't there? It looks pretty tasty.
Are you referring to Space Hulk Deathwing?
Yeah. Any reviews of that? Any good?
I don't think it's actually out yet for a couple more days.
Oh, right, okay. Well, what is out in a couple of days is the Wood Elves faction on Total War. It looks pretty interesting. You can buy it a little bit cheaper before it comes out, but that looks like, I'm going to be getting that, let's say.
That's going to jab some more life back into Total War. Are you thinking maybe you're going to be using those in our competitive multiplayer campaign?
Can you actually have a whole campaign as multiplayer then?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. So it's
you
not
can set turn time limits and stuff like that.
That could be fun. Yeah, I'm up for that. Yeah, I'm up for that. What would you be? You're going to be the dwarves, aren't you?
I don't know. I might be the more difficult dwarf faction, the
Right.
clan Angrand, the one that's in a more difficult starting location, just to even it a bit.
I really enjoyed the dwarves. I don't think their heroes are as powerful as some of the other heroes that you get, say the vampire ones. Because if you get a banshee, she almost always gets a successful assault or an assassination, whereas the dwarf ones aren't so good. But I love it when the dwarf assassinates an enemy character. He goes, "Die!" in a Scottish accent.
I was never able to make any inroads into the enemy piles of heroes at all because they just stack up dozens of them.
So many of them.
And if you go in there and try and assassinate one, you might take it down, but then 4 of them are going to get you in the next turn. And they just seem to put so much money and resources into heroes compared to what you can feasibly do.
Well, there's ways of doing it. A lot of heroes, if you activate them in your territory, it gives other heroes less of a chance of being effective. That's one way of doing it. But yeah, the best way is to kill off the faction, and then all their heroes die.
That's always the best way to do it. Just kill off the entire faction.
Yeah, or become friends with them, and then betray them.
Now, would you like to have a look at some juicy rumour mill stuff here?
I bet you.
Now, this is a picture we go.
Any news about that ball we were looking at last time? Did anyone find out what it was?
Not yet.
No.
But how about this? Now, we don't know what this is for yet, whether it's for Age of Sigmar or 40k. But GW did tease this out there, which looks like a set of danglers, a set of keys dangling away there.
I thought it was someone playing Hangman.
Is it some keys dangling from some kind of evil, skeletal, or demonic hand there? Or is it just where they're going to be hanging on some kind of device or vehicle, perhaps? So I want to see what the audience think about this one as well, because there's been speculation running rampant across the internet about what it could be.
I think it's definitely Death faction, and I hope it's not Chaos anyway, but yeah, definitely Death, and that is not the keys to my heart, but it could be the keys to David Jones's heart. What about that?
Hmm.
Jones's locker.
I would suggest perhaps, you never know, because we've just had a lot of 40k Zench stuff, including the Zangors, which can be used for both games, then maybe they're going to be doing Zench Age of Sigmar next, which would be Chaos. So,
Oh, you think that's Zench?
you never know, it could be. It's got the kind of spindly arm you might expect from a Zinchian hero,
Yeah,
perhaps.
that makes sense. The Keeper of Secrets, right?
Yeah.
That's a shame. I was hoping it could be, the first reveal of Pirates of Saragossa. Do you remember that? That was just one of the many $1 million ideas I had. Board game, Pirates of Saragossa.
Occasionally they blur together, unless it's one of the real standout ones that Duncan steals.
Yes.
Paul Conti says the key's all over the devoted of Sigmar, I assume. But he actually put demoted, but I don't think that's what it's supposed to be.
But why is there like an evil skeletal hand holding it then?
That'd be the question. Barrett Musselman thinks it's an AdMech cog on the key, which is a 40k thing. It's a symbol that's quite reminiscent of one of the 40k symbols there. So, interesting one. Hopefully it is something for Age of Sigmar, unless that would mean a delay to the Dwarden. If it would mean that, then I hope it's 40k, and then we get Dwarden the next month after that.
Do you know what they should do with 40k? They should just infest the whole of the Imperium with Tyranids. I think that'd be good, and the Imperium gets totally annihilated.
Well, you can argue that they're already kind of heading towards the 40k end times, because they just brought in this huge, gigantic Magnus character who's very similar to the likes of Nagash and Arcane and all those. Yeah. So if they are going for the 40k end times, who knows where it'll end up?
It would be pretty cool, wouldn't it, if like that happened and then the Tau just united everyone and they like lived happily ever after. What about that?
Is that one of your $1 million ideas?
For the greater good, and that could be the end of the movie. You know what I mean? There you go.
Bazooka J. Rambo is not a fan of that idea. I know he is a big 40k fluff enthusiast. So I think you've possibly hurt his brain with that idea. Everyone uniting for the greater good, the Tau swoop in and save the day.
Brilliant, but it's so cheesy. Everyone gets put off 40k and they go to the right place. That's fantasy.
Mickey Jennifer says perhaps that key is a dwarf with skinny arms. I'm not sure how I would feel about that. I don't think dwarves want to be skinny. It wouldn't be a real dwarf, would it?
It could be a naked dwarf.
I think we've already had enough naked dwarves with gold imprinted on their bodies. There weren't a whole lot of butt cheeks, though, in the Fire Slayers. Did you notice that?
No.
There's been kind of a dearth of butt cheek releases lately.
No. Have you had any more ideas of what new units you'd bring with different factions?
When it comes to the Dwarden, I have no idea. Because I still don't even know if they're going to be doing away with all of the old range or whether they're going to keep some of them in there like they did with the Black Orcs and kind of rebrand them, like the Iron Drakes maybe. So if they're getting rid of everything and just completely wiping the slate clean and starting again, that would open up a lot more possibilities and they wouldn't have an old theme to tie into. If it's just complete clean slate, then we might just see giant dwarves in battle suits and things like that instead of tiny infantry.
Yeah. What about a Nurgle Slugman?
Nurgle Slugman?
Yeah, it was just slugs. Or they ride on a giant slug.
How about the Nurgle champion Helmut Slugman?
Yeah. That'd be cool. I can't see halflings coming back. Then it's not going to happen, is it?
Well, they're going to be in Blood Bowl, apparently.
Are they?
So they're not completely dead because Blood Bowl is still based in the old world, of course.
And I've just sold my first edition halfling team.
Wow. Classic Remington. You rolled the dice and it's come up with the single skull, hasn't it?
Bloody hell. I think with the money I got from all that stuff, I bought it on stupid stuff as well. You know what I mean? There you go.
Like that tie.
Hey, what do you mean this tie? This tie, you probably wouldn't have heard of it, but it's Ted Baker. But he's pretty famous.
It's a brand name I have heard of as far as products being ridiculously overpriced for what they actually are.
I think the furthest you go, it's like the Blacks, isn't it? Blacks is the furthest you'll go, but you'll start at sort of George Asda. And then, that'll be maybe Top Man. That'll be kind of it.
When I was at school, actually, I used to cause a lot of amusement to people because I would intentionally go for the most comically branded shoes available. You know how if you get a pair of trainers, sometimes they have the brand name written on the side. So if it's something that's popular, that's fine. But if it's like the bottom level brand that's kind of eerily similar to a big brand, I would say, right, I want those kind of comedy shoes. I just thought that was hilarious.
I hear that, man, but I think in life you generally get what you pay for, up to a point.
Not always.
Buy from Primark, then be prepared for it to fall apart after 2 washes. You know? Hooves of Doom says instead of Bugman's, they're going to call it Slugman's Bar. Be nice, wouldn't it?
Slugman's Bar. I think that might put people off eating there, actually. If there's a slug who's got their hand in it or their... What body part would the slugs even assist in the kitchen with? Their antenna, perhaps?
I forgot they have antenna.
Yeah, they kind of withdraw them, don't they, a lot?
Any other news then? What else we got?
Well, not really.
Well, we've got those new box sets, which I know you've already covered. They're not bringing out a dwarf box set, are they? You know, Fyreslayer's one.
Not yet.
I think they shot themselves in the foot because they were overpriced when they first released those, and I think it's too much of a drop for them to box them up and do a big discount as much as they're doing with the other ones. You know, £25 for 5 one-wound dwarves. You know what I mean?
It's possible. If they did do a battle force like that, that would be the kind of thing that could have tempted me into Fyreslayers if they had done a big, really good value box with a magma droth in there.
Yeah, me too.
But no sign of it yet. And it's not like they're only doing it for the old races, because the Stormcast are obviously the new breed of miniatures, and the Sylvaneth, most of those models are new as well.
That's right. And, you know, the Stormcast have had like 2 wounds each on average, don't they?
Yes, I'm not sure what the deal is with the Fyreslayers.
Yeah. I mean, if they bring out the new dwarves, I hope they're not as expensive. I don't think they will be, because the Fyreslayers look quite elite faction, aren't they?
It depends which direction they're going with the steam head Dwarden, though, doesn't it? How powerful they're going to be. Hopefully it's not a ridiculously high model count army, because I think I'm enjoying using the Stormcast because there aren't that many of them to push around on the table or paint. So let's hope they're not too crazily cheap and numerous. We don't want Night Goblin levels and numbers here. Or Ungors. Luckily, you've already got a lot of beastmen painted, though.
I've got a lot of beastmen painted, and I'm not painting anymore. Although I've got about 60 unpainted bits and bobs. No, done with that. Nearly sold my beastmen, actually. I haven't quite sold them. I had a few offers, a few people wanting to see what I've got, which is cool. A beastmen faction you're going to play on Warhammer Total War?
I will certainly give them a try at some point.
They never quite get anywhere in the game, do they? They just sort of appear and it says the beastmen have arrived, and then within a turn or two, someone just annihilates them.
Well, can they even take any territory?
Yeah, no, they just destroy stuff and then they sort of encamp, and that's how they gain new units, and they build up their camp. It's the same as what Chaos do. So your infrastructure grows by you going into encamp mode.
Basically, you're just raiding enemy territory for the most part, rather than taking it over.
That's right.
So all the factions have a limit on where they can conquer, but it seems like Chaos and Beastmen really have the kind of the smallest amount of places they can actually...
Yeah. That's why it seems a bit weird with the Wood Elves, because you wouldn't imagine they'd want to really conquer the old world. Unless they're going to go around planting trees. You know what I mean?
Well, you can always just hold on to your little forest and take out the evil doers and then just make friends with everybody else. And then call that a day.
Yeah. Until
the Empire decide they want those trees to make some new wooden buildings.
I'm looking forward to using the war dancers. I think they have war dancers there, don't they? I'm sure I've seen scantily clad, feminine-looking elves on the pictures.
There have been quite a few of those floating around.
It's good. Never a bad thing.
Right, before we go on to all the crazy segments for the week, let's have a look at what people are saying. Because Dreddy would like to see Scuttlings given a points value. I don't think they have one yet. In the General's Handbook 2. Dreaming Cyborg is talking about the Genitals Handbook, which was, of course, your version of the General's Handbook, and it should be Slaanesh specific. Okay. Rob Lloyd Sweet says Eternal Guard need to be battle line. Of course, battle line units being the ones that you have to have a certain number of. You can't just take nothing but elite. Fluffy Dread thinks giant rats need to be battle line for Skaven. So people think certain units need to be moved to battle line. Rob Lloyd Sweet says Vulcanite Berserkers need to be cheaper. Now, weren't Vulcanite Berserkers, didn't they feature heavily in the first heavily broadcast tournament that Warhammer TV did? So surely they can't be that bad. I remember seeing a lot of them there, unless I'm thinking of a totally different unit, but I'm pretty sure it was Vulcanite Berserkers that we saw quite a few of. So if they're doing well competitively, maybe they're not, maybe that was just a one-off. Apparently,
do you remember when we covered the Lake House model that what you would call it, Forge World put out? It's from The Hobbit, but it's a pretty awesome scenery build you can use for anything. I remember us talking about it, showing some pictures, and it being quite cheap as well. Well, I think that's is it out or is it sold out?
Everything sells out nowadays.
People tell me I sold out.
When did they tell you that?
All the time, man. I'm a sellout.
Is it true?
No.
There you have it.
Yes, it's true.
Now, Paul Conti says pretty much the whole Ironjawz army needs to be dropped 20 points each. Ha. And I think people competitively seem to lean towards the Bone Splitters more than the Ironjawz, don't they? When they want to get their orc fix. So it seems like that would be reasonable, that the Ironjawz aren't quite as juicy competitively. Dreaming Cyborg would like to see Dragon Ogres to be battle line, so you can build a whole army out of them. Dragon Ogres are probably the coolest of all the Ogre units out there, or all the kind of chaos-related units as well. I do like Dragon Ogres. I used to have one of the old metal ones back in the day. I remember those.
Do you think Dragon Ogres should be optional as part of the Ogre army as well?
I don't know. In the fluff, do they ever associate with the regular ogres, or are they looked at as their hideous mutated brethren that have turned to the dark side?
There's no mention of them really as being associated. So, If
anyone knows any more info on that, let us know.
Because you could have an ogre riding a dragon ogre. That could be fun.
It might look a bit strange.
It would, wouldn't it?
Let's see. Mr. Conti also says demigryphs need to be dropped, maybe 40 points even. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of demigryphs used. Let's see. Anything else? Can't see too many more comments on this. The feelings I have are that in my extensive experience using the Stormcast Eternals, a couple of their characters are a tiny bit too expensive. I feel like, for example, the Knight Venator and the Knight Zeros, I don't think one of them is as powerful as a unit of just your standard 5 infantry. I think they should maybe be dropped down a teensy little bit, those particular characters. And there are a couple of others as well that it seems to be the standard. If they don't know how much to make a character in points, it's just make it 100, the same as 5 Liberators. But I think in many ways 5 Liberators are actually better than some of those characters. So I'm not sure. Some of them are a bit situational, the heroes. So if you have the right combo, then you could argue that they could be worth that. But I think maybe they should be a tiny bit cheaper.
Rob Lloyd Sweet has set the record straight, saying Dragon Ogres are really mutated Zotes, which were an interesting race back from the 80s in Warhammer. They were kind of like, a bit like Dragon Ogres, but without tails, holding massive clubs. They become Dragon Ogres. We talked about demigryphs, right? What about semigryphs?
And how would a semigryph work exactly?
I'm asking you.
Well, let's think about it. A griffin, obviously, is the big flying bird beast. The demigryph is like a...
Sort of halfway?
It's halfway there. It doesn't have wings and it's a bit smaller. So would a semigryph be... Maybe it has one wing?
So perhaps not as erect as a fully fledged demigryph?
Perhaps. You'd have it... It's kind of a more of a serpent-like, perhaps? A bit more slithering.
A semigryph, I like that. It hasn't quite grown wings. It's not quite yet flying.
Maybe just a tiny little pair of wings so it can jump, but it can't really fly, so it's just a little bit faster.
It's more like a worm.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay.
Maybe it can ignore terrain or something to some extent, but it's not quite as fast as if it could fly. You're looking very proud of yourself there. Hooves of Doom is making an army with 12 demigryphs. No mention of semigryphs in his army, though. So if anyone wants to convert up a semigryph and post it in the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group, then feel free. That would be exciting for everyone, I'm sure. Right, I think it's time for our first amazing entertainment segment of the night, which, of course, I had to handle this week. Now, you may remember a couple of weeks ago, we had What the Hell, or What the Duncan Is That, I think it was called, and you'll be pleased to hear that that particular segment has returned. Duncan's face has been adorned with 3 currently available miniatures in the Age of Sigmar range. First person to name all 3 is the winner. Mr. Remington, would you like to give us the What the Duncan Is That theme song as I show off tonight's offering?
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? What the hell is that? What the Duncan is that? What the Duncan is that? What the Duncan is that? Only Andy and Remington know.
There you go. Duncan, something wrong with his eyes, and it looks like he needs a trip to the dentist as well.
Well, he did have a trip to the gym last week. Did you see that one?
I did. I saw Duncan pumping the old iron, or whatever those spray cans are made out of.
Duncan's like the Philip Schofield of Warhammer, isn't he?
I don't know. I think he's held in slightly higher regard than that. I think Duncan is like this, the Chuck Norris of Warhammer.
Or maybe more like the Duncan Peters?
I don't
Andy
know
Peters.
that.
Andy Peters. No, Andy Peters. Yeah, I'll go with that. Chuck Norris of Warhammer, sure. Chuck Norris of Warhammer. That would make me like the George Clooney of Warhammer, wouldn't it? And that would make you like I don't know, like the Woody Harrelson, maybe.
I don't know about that. Maybe we should ask the audience on that after What the Duncan Is That.
Yes. Okay.
Which celebrities are we closest linked to if you were to put an equivalent celebrity hierarchy together in the wargaming community?
Actually, I've changed my mind. I think you would be like... Who's the baddie out of Die Hard? He died last year, unfortunately. This year. Alan Rickman. You're like the Alan Rickman, but with short hair. And, yes, not so...
I think I'm far better looking. Anyway. Okay, have we got any guesses yet? Let's see. Mickey Jenver, don't know about Duncan, but Andy has a lot of Facebook pictures open. Yes, you can see at the end there a lot of those F symbols on the screen share, which means I've just taken the links directly from Facebook for some of the pictures we're going to show you later from the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group.
Do you think Duncan could like the bigger was like a star he gets, like the face of, Warhammer Hobby, he could like sort of get a big pay rise? Do you reckon?
I don't know. I think probably once his celebrity status reaches a certain point and it comes to renegotiating his contract, he is going to be able to... he's going to have quite a strong hand to deal on the negotiating table, isn't he?
Interesting. And then if they don't go for it, you know what I mean? And he leaves Games Workshop and then like... It'd be cool, wouldn't it, if he like started his own like show that's like the same thing but just not called Warhammer TV.
It would be, actually. If he made Duncan TV as the rival to Warhammer TV. I don't think we've actually had any guesses yet. which is quite outrageous. Okay, let's lower the requirement for victory to 2 successful guesses. If you can name 2 of the miniatures that have aligned themselves with Duncan's face in kind of this unholy alliance, then you will be victorious.
Well, the mouth looks familiar. Definitely. I've seen that mouth before. Might have even painted it.
Bazooka J. Rambo thinks it's Skaven teeth. Well, I can tell you right now that those teeth are not Skaven. There's a clue for you.
Something Skaven there.
The teeth are not Skaven. Something else might be. Wink, wink, wink. Let's see. Fluffy Dread has guessed and has given guesses that are all from 1987, which of course would be wrong, because these are all currently available in the Age of Sigmar range. Is it really that difficult? I think the eye on the left of the picture, someone should be able to get that one. Many, many people have painted that model, and it's been pictured quite a lot in the Facebook group. Plenty of people have worked on it. The other eye as well is something I've seen quite a few of floating around. The mouth, I'll tell you, is a less popular miniature. It's not as well thought of. Skeleton Flower guesses Vargeist eye. Nope. Come on, someone's got to get this.
Have you ever heard anyone say there's no I in Wii?
Unless they're talking about the Nintendo Wii, which of course has 2 eyes in it.
No, they'll say no, there's no I in Wii. You know what I mean?
There's also no I in teamwork, but there is a me.
Yeah, it's like when someone says, I did this. It's all my hard work. And then you're supposed to be a team, and then you say, then they say, but there's no I in we. I've noticed those people are always the ones that say I more than anyone else. Just a little observation. Look out for that.
We've got a guess here from Newbie. A zombie eye, a vampire eye, and old Nagash mouth. No. None of those are correct. Cody Weaver thinks it's an Auric mouth. No, it's not. You know what? I'm going to tell you which faction the pieces are from now. Okay, so the mouth is from the Death faction, or the Death Grand Alliance.
Mm.
And the eyes are both from the Chaos Grand Alliance.
Do you know, I think it kind of suits Duncan, this look.
Do you?
Yeah, he looks kind of a bit more tough now, you know what I mean?
Instead of being Mr. Nice Guy, you think this is him when he's like his second life on the underground fighting circuit.
Yeah, I would say grow the hair a little bit longer and then get some neck tattoos. And then he'd be like, you know, proper geese then. Proper force in Nottingham.
What would you have as far as the tattoos go? You'd have to have 2 designs that start on the shoulders and work their way onto the neck, and you have to have something written at the base of the neck. What would it be?
I would, because it's him, I would say write something like Sigmar's Chosen.
What about like 2 thin coats?
2 thin coats, yeah. I like it. Look, let's be honest, right? No confession time. Have you ever really done 2 thin coats ever?
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Not very often. There are certain colours, especially if I'm going over black, for example, a black undercoat, and I want to paint something yellow. Then yes, I have done 2 thin coats.
Wow.
Well, usually I do 1 thin coat and then get bored of doing thin coats and just do 1 thick coat over it.
I think when you're painting big miniatures, it's a lot easier to do thin coats. When you're painting little ones, forget about it. No way.
Let's see. I think someone's actually got one of these correct. Okay. Skeleton Flower says Vargulf. Oh no, someone else got that one first. Dino Titan Edition says Doom Flare Weapon Team right eye, and the mouth is Vargulf. Well, I can tell you now that mouth is from the Vargulf. So that is correct. So the first person to get that was Mr. Dino. So 1 point there. Let's see who is going to get the other 2. So the Vargulf mouth is out of bounds now. That's just a point for Mr. Dino Titan Edition. Let's see. Has anyone got any of the other eyes yet? No, they haven't.
The eyes have
so
it.
Let's try and narrow it down a little bit more, shall we? The eye on the right the red eye, kind of surrounded by grey, that is somewhat verminous, shall we say. And the eye on the left, which looks kind of less like an eye and more like some kind of eruption from the skin, is something a little bit disease-ridden, shall we say. So if anyone can get both the eyes, then they can reign supreme here. Let's see, if Mr. Dino can get one of the eyes, then he will be declared the winner. But he's not got it yet. He thinks Skaven Warlord eyes, perhaps. Nope, it's not a Skaven Warlord. I'll also tell you, it's a miniature perhaps you wouldn't think of immediately when you think of eyes in the old vermin. Paul Conti says Sigvald. Nope, none of those pieces are Sigvald. I'm sure Skeleton Flower is outraged that you would think any of those facial features are in any way linked to the Beacon of Magnificence, Mr. Sigvald. Fluffy Dread says Skaven Warlord Eye and Nurgle Champion Eye. I'm going to have to ask you to narrow one of those down a bit. I'm going to be a bit more specific. Let's see. Newbie thinks the left eye is Rat Ogre. No, it's not. Barrett Musselman Plague Bearer. Nope. Mickey Jenver thinks that Duncan is Sigvald. So you think if Sigvald had a haircut, he would become Duncan. Interesting. I'm not seeing too much of a resemblance based on this picture, but you never know. The right eye could be Sigvald after a heavy night partying, according to Newbie. It could be, but it's not. No one's ever, to the best of my knowledge, no one has ever painted a post-party Sigvald yet. Let's see. Andreas Goodmanson. Oh no, someone else said, we got that first. Rob Lloyd Sweet says Hell Pit Eye. Yes, the eye on the right of the picture is from the Hell Pit Abomination. So, can anyone get the eye on the left? Let's see. Yes. Fluffy Dread said Lord of Plagues. It is from the Lord of Plagues. So 3 people have each got one of the components of this miniature. Well then. And Remington just made a sandwich and no one noticed. What kind of sandwich was it?
Well, it was a crisp sandwich. But you'd say potato chip sandwich, wouldn't you, in America? I've got some festive cinnamon-flavoured crisps. And I can tell you, it doesn't work for me.
There's nothing quite like a crisp sandwich. So, to determine the winner, since we've got 3 people that each guessed one body part, I'm going to now reveal them. But Mr. Remington has no idea which order the 3 pictures are in the next tabs. So, you're going to give me a number 1, 2, or 3, and whichever one it is, the person who guessed that body part first is going to be the winner. So give me a number.
1.
It's the Vargulf.
Oh.
And I believe it was Mr. Dino Titan Edition that got the Vargulf part of it. So as you can see, the Vargulf mouth there.
Wow.
Looks very nice on Duncan, I think. So Mr. Dino is the winner. And the other part says the Hell Pit. The eye is right there, actually, the one I used. Tiny little thing there. And then we've got this guy here, the Lord of Plagues. And it was his central belly eye, actually.
Wow, that's hot. Did anyone get that?
Yes, someone did get that.
Wow.
But it was all in vain because I think Mr. Dino is the grand wiener this week. Right then. I think you know what comes after what the hell is that?
What's that, Andy?
Well, it's your favourite part of the show.
Is it?
It is.
My favourite.
It is. And I think you have a theme song ready.
Have you got any more lyrics?
I think you'll have to come up with some more lyrics on the fly because people are getting sick of just hearing that one line.
Yeah, but that's how you write a catchy song, you see. You just repeat the same thing over and over. It sticks in your head, you know? In the forest of Rem, in the forest of Rem, where boys become men, in the forest of men, the forest of men, the forest of men, where men become wren, in the forest of Wren. Is it a chicken or is it a hen? Is it a lizard in the forest of Rem?
Right then. If you've quite finished.
Sorry. That was good, wasn't it? I was playing and tuning at the same time and writing a song.
Now, to give people the very brief rundown on the adventures so far, Mr. Remington has been on a series of escapades inside the forest of Rem. He's accidentally butchered numerous people, turned others into flesh gloves, grown several chaos mutations. He currently has the flesh wand of Slaanesh for a big toe. He has a head of Zench poking out of one of his arms, and he has the tiny, not very impressive horn of Khorne sprouting from the center of his forehead. Now, last week, or the week before last, if you can recall, Mr. Remington found himself in a bit of a pickle against a giant until the pygmies called on the almighty Cecil the Unicorn, who rode in majestically into the scene. Mr. Remington then mounted Cecil. Cecil has been mounted and is now effectively Remington's steed for the moment. And the old Remster was in a bit of a dilemma. He was pondering whether to attack the giant while mounted on Cecil the Magical Unicorn, or whether to flee the scene and leave the giant to be dispatched potentially by the pygmies. So, Mr. Remington, that's your first choice for the night. What will you do? You've just mounted this magnificent horned steed known for spraying forth rejuvenating life juices.
I do like riding bareback, so I don't want to get off this mount. But at the same time, I don't want to leave my little pygmy followers because they've been good to me. And I think Cecil's horn has some tricks. So I'm gonna pat Cecile lightly and say, "Go get him."
So you want to encourage Cecil to charge headlong at the giant.
You betcha. That's the unicorn's best weapon, isn't it? It's D3 wounds on the charge, or something like that. Let's go for it.
Right. Okay then. Fair enough. I think you're gonna have to roll the dice to see how successful you are in persuading Cecil to charge headlong into a giant with his horn lowered for battle.
Right, take that, giant. Remington! It's a 2.
A 2 is not entirely buying into your idea. Cecil the Magical Unicorn hesitates. But he does start slowly trotting towards the giant with his horn lowered for combat. Cecil turns his head back to you as you are mounting his back, and he offers you the following words. What is our plan, O Master Remington?
Well, if you're not going to charge him, then spray him.
You want him to spray?
Well, he's got a magical spray, right?
He's got magical rejuvenating horn juice. You don't necessarily want to rejuvenate the giant. Unless you want to perhaps attempt to corrupt Cecil in some way so that his juices are more corrosive. You do have various tools at your disposal. You are a multi-champion of chaos here.
I don't know what to do.
You could maybe call on the chaos gods to give some kind of blessing to Cecil to make him more corrosive. Or you could use one of your boons, for example, the flesh wand or the head of Zench or the horn that you have in some way.
Which god shall I choose? Let the audience decide.
Okay, which chaos god should Mr. Remington pray for to bless Cecil with the power of that particular deity and make him a little bit more fatal to the giant rather than rejuvenating? Holy Backyard Prophet says Andy's Cecil voice cracks me up.
Remington quotes are out of context and fabulous, apparently.
Okay, right. Andreas Goodmanson says Zench. Hooves of Doom says Undivided, although I don't think Mr. Remington quite has the power to call on Chaos Undivided. He only has 3 blessings. Stu Gibson says call on Grandfather Nurgle to bless Cecil with corrosive breath. Dreddy says the Horned Rat.
I think I've made my decision. I'm going to go with Dreaming Cyborg and say Slaanesh. How about a sexy unicorn boon? Okay,
then roll the die. And then after you roll it, you're going to have to try and boost that dice roll by actually offering a song or a prayer to Slaanesh.
So what kind of a boon could a unicorn get from Slaanesh?
That depends on the power of your song and the power of your dice roll.
Okay. Does it have to be a kind of a weapon boon as well, I guess?
It will be something that will help you in the fight against the giant, definitely.
Okay. Here we go. Remington! It's a 5.
Right, that's a good start. You're going to have to offer us a song now to Slaanesh.
Okay.
Remington offering up a song to Slaanesh is something that I should probably be ready to hit stop broadcast at any moment, just in case it goes a bit far.
Oh, Slaanesh, give your servant a mighty boon. Oh, Slaanesh, give Cecile a little more room.
Well, you know what? That combined with the 5 on the dice, I think that's going to be quite a good result. So, from the heavens, you see a mighty clawed, kind of crab claw hand reach down and point seductively in Cecil's direction. A beam of light erupts from the end of the claw, and it meets with Cecil's magical horn, which begins to swell with magical energy. Then it begins to spray forth in the giant's direction, but it's not the same kind of juices that it sprayed previously. These don't seem like they rejuvenate. They're somewhat more pink and perhaps sparkly, with it's kind of a hint of raised eyebrow in there.
It's like a rainbow juice.
There is a bit of rainbow in there as well. It splatters all across the lower body of the giant.
So the giant's tasting the rainbow.
He potentially is if he has taste buds in his knees and his groin. The giant looks down and sees that he is soaked. At first, you're not sure what effect it has had on him until suddenly the giant begins to struggle to maintain his footing. He sways back and forth, and then a terrible sight befalls everyone around. The giant's tiny little loincloth is no longer sufficient. You see, he has been blessed with these juices that have granted him excess danglage, far in excess of anything that could ever be useful for any practical purpose. And the giant has now been weighed down by the pure mass of the danglage that's going on here.
John Holmes, the giant.
The giant is forced to drop to his knees to rest the danglage on the forest floor because he just can't maintain his weight standing upright anymore. You've now left the giant vulnerable to attack.
Yeah, but I've given him a great blessing as well. Do you know what I mean? He can be like the alpha giant.
Well, but he can't stand up. He's been overblessed.
He doesn't have to. He can just live like a king, can't he? Just sit there and, followers will come to him and worship his mighty phallus. I think instead of attacking him, I should ride round him like in a kind of like a victory dance thing. Ride round him and...
Ride around his maypole.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you're going to order the pygmies to join in, kind of tie ribbons around the giant and kind of dance around him.
Yeah, it'll be like a fertility ceremony.
Okay, roll the dice.
All right.
To see how successful this ceremony is.
You see, guys, it doesn't always end in a fight. You know what I mean? We can turn this world into a world of love for the greater good.
Well, let's roll the dice first and see exactly how much love the world is going to be filled with.
Remington!
Right on cue.
It's a 1.
Very well. As the pygmies attach their coloured ropes and tassels around the giant and start dancing around him, Remington leads the procession with his own mighty rainbow-coloured rope, which Cecil has spewed out of his majestic horn. Unfortunately, Cecil loses his footing in the undergrowth, slips, causes a domino effect of the pygmies. Each one of them falls face first, still clutching the ropes, which squeeze the giant's regions so tightly that they just completely sever the giant's dangling regions, and they fly off into the forest, clobbering trees on the way past. The giant begins to bleed horrendously, and he cries out in agony. He doubles over, crashes to one side, taking several pygmies with him, just completely splatting them, and he rapidly bleeds out and dies.
Hey, it's win-win. Look, my pygmy brethren, meat's back on the menu, boys.
So the surviving pygmies are going to harvest the giant flesh, and they're going to be well fed.
Hey, listen, I've staved off starvation for a year. Just there. You know what I'm saying?
You may well have done. And I assume you're going to dismount Cecil, or are you going to try and persuade him to go with you as your permanent mount?
Never. I'm going to be riding off into the sunset like the Bretonian Fey Enchantress, but a man.
You may have to bargain with the pygmies to take away the rejuvenator of their forest home. What can you offer them in exchange, other than the giant meat, which they already have access to?
I tell you what, as a parting gift, I will get Cecile to spray over you one last time. Who knows what could happen? Could be kind of cool.
Okay, roll the dice.
They might even grow a foot or two. Here we go. Remington! It's a 6.
A 6. Very well. The pygmies line up, and each in turn they are sprayed with the majestic, rejuvenating juices of Cecil the Magical Unicorn.
They line up and get sprayed. Okay.
However, there is still a hint of the Slaanesh blessing within Cecil's horn gland, shall we say. So, these juices have a twofold effect on the pygmies. First of all, each one of them sprouts an additional foot in height. So I'm not sure whether they can legally be classified as pygmies anymore. Beyond that, though, each one of them has noticed not necessarily a hugely significant amount, but at least a small amount of additional danglage.
It's like pygmy bukkake, isn't it?
Let's never say that again on this show.
I've heard that's what it's called. Sorry, the wrong word came out. What am I trying to say? Don't know, grow your own?
Well, it's safe to say that the Pygmy Fertility Festival has been a great success, and they're going to rush away and they're going to reproduce at an astounding rate of extra tall pygmies. So anytime you wish to return to these lands, you'll be greeted with open arms, and Cecil and Remington ride off into the forest. Which way are you going to go? Are you going to go to the direction that has lots of freshly felled trees from the gigantic entanglement incident of the giant, or are you going to go in a slightly different direction, take you on a different course, but will be heading towards the cave, which was the last location marked on the map?
I shall head to the Dread Cave, I think.
You're going to head towards the cave. Very well. On your first day of travelling, we're going to see how eventful it is now. Roll the die.
Didn't the pygmies give me like a parting gift, or like some armor or a magical?
Cecil is your parting gift.
Well, I didn't. They didn't give it to me. I took it from them. Okay. There we go. So I'm heading towards the Dread Cave on my mighty Mount Cecile. Remington! I got a 3. It's below average.
A 3, just below average. As Cecil trots his way through the undergrowth, you notice a small, hooded creature, the kind of thing that Mr. Remington does not have good luck interacting with, sitting by the side of the trail. Would you like to approach this hooded figure?
Yeah, but I'm not going to kill him. Because every time I meet a hooded stranger, somehow or another, I manage to hurt him without meaning to. So I'm going to have my hands behind my back and just put my feet together and just sort of like shuffle over to him and keep a good distance away.
Okay, roll the dice to see how successful your shuffling towards him harmlessly is.
Cecile, stay back. Remington! It's a respectable 5.
That is quite respectable indeed. You work your way towards the hooded figure, who lifts his head up, and you see that there are flies emerging from one gigantic empty eye socket. The rest of the flesh seems pale and disease-ridden.
I think sounds like he needs a facial.
You think he needs some rejuvenating horn juice?
Cecile!
Very well. Roll the dice again.
Remington! It's a magical 6.
That is quite amazing. With that, Cecil strides forward proudly. He aims his horn in the direction of the mysterious stranger, and he comes out with the following words. Filthy stranger, lean back and enjoy the rejuvenating effects of my magical horn juice. He completely coats the filthy stranger, who, in a kind of a bolt of light and sparkles and rainbows, suddenly he's tall, magnificent, long flowing locks, quite handsome actually, far more handsome than Remington. He turns to you and he says, Thank you, Mr. Remington. I know who you are, for I have foreseen it. My missing eye has returned. I have lost my powers of foresight, but I am now incredibly handsome, devilishly good-looking, in fact. How can I ever repay you, Mr. Remington?
Oh, you could tell me what the hell's going on. No one else has.
Well, he did. He obviously, with his powers of foresight that he had previously, he would know something that's going on out there in the world.
What's the point of it all?
So, let's see what kind of info he's going to give you. Roll the dice.
Well, hopefully he'd spill the beans after getting such satisfying reward from me. Here we go. Dice roll, Remington. It's a 4. Just above average.
That's pretty tasty.
Story of my life, that. Just above average.
Well, he's going to bestow on you the following information. Master Remington, I can offer you the following. The memories of my former life are leaving me, but they remain for one fleeting moment, and I shall impart my wisdom onto you. You have been chosen, Master Remington. You have a great purpose, but all is not as it seems. You may be an agent of good, but dark forces seek to control you for their own purposes.
I know that feeling.
That is the information he has imparted on you. And with that, he shakes your hand. He shakes Cecil's horn, which causes a few extra droplets to fall off, making him even more handsome, oddly enough. And he sets on his merry way through the forest, leaving you with that fresh nugget of information, heading towards the cave, the final destination of your great adventure.
Wow.
And with that, we leave it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Quite eventful. I think you'll agree.
I think this is stuff of legends, that, isn't it? Stuff of legends.
It is. Someone said it should be its own show. And actually, when it's over, I'm going to snip out all of these segments and put them in as one video so people can just watch it start to finish on its own.
With pictures. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
If someone can help us with some pictures from the adventures of the Forest of Rem, that would be great.
Just if you're looking for pictures of me, just go on to gq.com.
Yeah, anyone who wants to draw a picture of Rem during the various stages of the adventure. So like when he started out and he had the mandolin and then he gained all the mutations slowly as it went along. If you want to draw pictures of any of his mutations on their own.
Someone could make a model, couldn't they? Like models of the various Remington. And then, you could have like champion Remington on the unicorn. Pretty cool.
Well, you've got quite a good life at the moment, haven't you? Being this triple champion of chaos with all these different gifts on your body, and now you're riding on the most legendary of unicorn mounts.
See, this is a good thing for the fluff. What about, like for Age of Sigmar fluff or Warhammer fluff, what about a chaos champion that betrayed the chaos gods and fought for the Empire or fought for the dwarves or elves? That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? It's always the other way around, isn't it? Like Archaon used to be like a priest of Sigmar, and then he tragedy befell him and he cursed the gods and turned to chaos. What if it was the other way around?
And while you're stewing on that, I should point out that Mickey Genva is apparently planning to draw some pictures.
Oh, that'd be amazing. We could make it into a book and publish it. $1 million idea. 70-30, Andy.
We may have to change a couple of the references in there to avoid being sued by GW for affiliating ourselves with Slaanesh.
No, they don't copyright unicorns or pygmies.
They copyright Slaanesh, though. We might have to rename all the Chaos Gods.
Okay. What could we call it?
Yeah, if anyone, this is one for the permanent comments after the show. Alternative names for the Chaos Gods, so we wouldn't get sued. There you go. Right, now, before we go, there's one final thing to do before the song and all that. We're going to have a look at some of the incredible pictures that popped up of people's miniatures in the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group. If you're not a member already, then you certainly should be, and you can find a link in the description. So, let's have a look. This is from Paul Richardson, which you can tell exactly what this is. Look at that long stream of vomit flying out there. I know that's a very familiar sight to you, Mr. Remington.
Sorry, I'm still reading the comments. Soul Assassin says, I think my virginity has grown back. I'm just trying to digest that.
That's probably not the right thing to do.
Okay. Wow, what's that? That's a Magathloid, isn't it? It's kind of like a big slug, isn't it, I suppose? Slug.
Yeah, that could be kind of Lord Slugman.
That vomit looks really deadly, doesn't it? It's like a ball and chain on the end of it.
It's like kind of like a cat's hairball at the end there. Then, now this isn't actually a very good picture because it's a bit dark, but this is from Rimke Smid, or is it Simd? I think I might have sat that out wrong. But anyway, the one thing that's notable though about these prosecutors is that he has removed the bulk of their danglers. They're now attached with flying bases kind of inserted into them rather than the usual kind of dangly scrolls they've got. What do you think about that as a conversion?
So they kind
makes
of
them
like,
a bit easy to transport, definitely.
They're kind of floating in the air without the wings, or they're jumping, or they're falling. I don't know, but yeah, kind of cool, right?
Yeah, they don't have wings yet. I'm not sure whether they will have wings, but pretty cool. They've got kind of tyrannid heads on them. He's got a very bizarre-looking army, but it's fun.
Yeah, like Chaos Sigmarians. Yeah, all right.
Then, this is from Max Anthony Wyatt.
Oh my God.
Now, the reason this is notable is the giant T-Rex, which has been used. And the actual models themselves, pretty sure they're lizard men. But I think some of these might be the classic, or like really old lizard men. I'm not sure from this exact picture. But look at that. As far as toys as miniatures go, that's higher on the totem pole of toys than most that you see out there. That's a pretty good one, isn't it? I'm not sure if it's actually finished or not. It looks like it's got paintwork on it, though.
It's kind of like the war paint I did on my Savage Orcs, that is. Yeah, that's wicked, man. I think that T-Rex should definitely have something in its mouth. Don't you?
What would you rather? What would you like to see in a T-Rex's mouth? A horse?
No, just like some Slaaneshi, something's chewing on something with tentacles, and why not? Absolutely chomping on a, an evil chaos corruption. Be good, wouldn't it? Take that, you chaos scum.
Now this is from Sam Jones. This is amazing.
Yeah, that is just straight out of a amazing paint book.
I would say better than the one on the GW website.
Yeah, that is well cool, man.
I think we could have the next Duncan here.
There's a lot.
Sam Jones.
Look at all the shades of blue.
I didn't know that many blues existed.
Yeah, that's wicked.
Pretty amazing. He's got some more stuff on the Facebook group as well. And now these were done by Dreddy recently, which are the Putrid Blight Kings, which are very, very putrid looking. And I like all the little weird details they have, like faces poking out of their bellies and whatnot. Pretty hilarious, aren't they?
Yeah,
some nice glow effects on these weapons as well.
They look like sweeties, don't they?
They do. You could just put them right into your mouth and then realise that they taste like pustules and rotting flesh. And finally, this is Mr. Skeleton Flower, which is a pig that apparently he sculpted himself and then painted.
Oh, wow.
So that makes it doubly impressive.
That's wicked, man.
Look at its tiny hat.
You can have like an army of pigs, just like in that famous book, Animal Farm. Do you know that story?
I'm just mesmerised by this hat.
Oh,
look at the size of it.
He's like a ringmaster.
That's the kind of hat that you should be able to put over your tiny, unimpressive horn of corn.
Yeah, to disguise it. That'd be funny.
Very, very tasty indeed. So, of course, anyone who wants to have their paintwork featured on this, the undisputed king of Age of Sigmar live shows, then just get those posts put into the Facebook group in the description below, of course. And I think that wraps it up for tonight. Slightly later show than usual, and a late arrival from Mr. Remington because of the groupie invasion of the road after they found out where his limo was passing through. So, of course, thanks everybody for joining us. Don't forget to like the video, of course. If you feel like it, don't forget to leave a permanent comment because it lets people know that this show is worth watching all the way through. If you leave a very, very complimentary comment that says, I especially love the part like an hour into the show, but it would be totally ruined if I'd skipped any of it to reach that point. So you must watch all the way through. And Mr. Remington has pulled out all the stops with his musical performances tonight. We've had a multitude of songs, more than usual. And we're going to get another one right now, I think, to say goodnight to everybody.
This is all about heading to the Cave of Dread with a hats off to a wonderful games mastership of the Forest of Rare, Mandy. Well done. I think we all appreciate that. Give the silent round of applause over the whole world. Yeah. All right, here we go. Are you a slave? Or are you a knave? Either way, head to the cave of dread. What's in the cave of dread? He said. What's in the cave of dread? We said. What's in the cave of dread? Is it an omelette with bread? In the cave of dread.